Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandy Glaze. I'm a personal transformation and self-development coach, and I specialize mostly in spiritual and emotional energies. And I'm delighted today to say I have Brad Zol-us with me. Brad Zol-us is, he lives in the United States. I forgot to ask what state you live in, but I'd just like to share with people his perspective. He has a really great take on being part of the change in the world that we want to see and including everybody the way it should be. So with that, I'm going to leave it to Brad. Welcome. I'm so happy that you could make it today.
Sandy, I'm honored to be on the show. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We were talking in the green room, and you were just running through some of the subjects we're going to cover today. And I hope everybody has a pen and a piece of paper because I think we're going to go deep today.
I think we are too. And this is the idea is I love the group that you're working with, the Millennials.
Yeah.
And when I look them up, their ages 27 to 42. They're the parents of today who are dealing with some nightmare issues. And their topics that they're dealing with is not something that we know intuitively, but we tend not to have a language around it. So this is what we're hoping to give people the language around it. So Brad, my understanding is this is what I liked about what I read about you: cross-generational expert, consultant, author, radio host. And I'd like you to tell people a little bit about yourself, how you got to be doing what you're doing.
Well, it actually started back in 1979. I know that's a stretch for some people, but my father was the first generation born in the United States from Hungary. And so he was the immigrant's kid. So he didn't care about my feelings. He didn't make me wear a helmet. You know, if I fell off my bike and hit my head, this was the generation where he'd look at me and go, "Okay, what did you learn? You learn not to do stupid stuff, right?" You know, that's the generation. So my father was from that silent generation, born here in the U.S. And so I grew up, and it was very hard. Two things were very hard with my dad: communication, trying to let him know, "Dad, guess what? There's a new world happening, and you don't seem to understand it." The second thing that was hard was to get a $20 bill out of my father for anything. So it was easier to start a business. And some of you are laughing, but yes, at 16, I started my first business, not because I was brilliant or I wanted to change the world. It's because my dad made it so hard to ask for a $20 bill. Okay. So I'm painting the picture for everybody. But one of the things, and you know this, Sandy, sometimes you're not cognizant of what is actually around you. And I started to realize through the years, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. My mom was an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur. And I guess I picked up that, what do you call it? That obsession with being an entrepreneur, simply because if my dad wanted to come see me play baseball, he'd shut the office and come watch me play baseball. I saw that freedom. I saw that je ne sais quoi, as the French say, that certain something, that basically my dad had freedom that the other fathers did not. And I guess I just fell into it as I grew up. I went to college for art and design, and I wound up going to New York City at 21. And I got very frustrated after 4 years of working at different companies. And by the way, back then, if they had a financial problem at the company, the first group of people who got fired or let go were the art department, not the accounting department. Even though the art department was directly billable to clients, they just wouldn't keep us on. So I literally was laid off, got another job, laid off, got another job. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go freelance. And that's how my career basically started. But I was offering my talents, to any studio that would hire me. And we'll go back a little bit. I did morning announcements in the radio show at my high school for like 3-4 years. And through the years, I discovered I was pretty good on the microphone. I could do voices. And in New York City, when I decided to go freelance, I didn't just offer graphic design services. I also offered voiceover services, because in one of the places I was working at, Carabiner, one day, they knew I would imitate different actors and stuff, and it was very funny. Yeah. But one of the producers came in and said, "Hey, I have to do some voiceovers for BMW. Could you do, 5 or 6 voices? I need an old man, a younger person, and, character accents." And that's what launched sort of my radio voiceover career. Yeah. So that's part of it. What
Well,
else you
that's
want
a
to know?
big part of it. And I love how you're talking about an entrepreneur, because we are going to be speaking about the millennials. And
Yeah.
I just like different things that you've said about them. But what they don't teach in universities or trade schools, they don't teach you how to be self-employed. They want you to be a
No.
good little button
Well,
pushing
yeah.
employee who
Well, they need
follows.
taxes. Yeah, they need
Yes.
taxes.
So that's what
And
they want.
a lot of people ask me, well, how does a graphic designer become a generational expert? Well, that's not a long story, but um, after 10 years in New York City, a buddy of mine from college, he was here too, Doug Cleek, he said, hey, I want to start a company with you. And so we were like, okay, here we are in the middle of New York City, graphic designers, let's do this. And we didn't think it through. We were in a 9 by 12 office, and we didn't realize there were 4,000 other design firms in New York City. So we're immediately competing with all these other places. But we pushed forward, and eventually Doug comes into the office one day and he goes, we have to become an internet design firm. And I'm like, well, what the hell's the internet? Because back in 1994, very few people knew what it was. So we retooled everything. We started sending out flyers and brochures. We wound up in advertising age, and then we just took off. I mean, we went from just he and I to 2 more business partners, 60 employees, and offices worldwide. We had an office in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Dusseldorf, Germany. And I'm standing around going, what the heck is going on? This explosion happened. And eventually we raised some capital and we went public on NASDAQ. And so I became an executive of a publicly traded company. And I started to notice something. My employees, although they might have been 3 years younger than me, I didn't realize I was a baby boomer. I was actually disappointed when I first heard I'm a baby boomer.
So you're at the tail end.
Yeah, I'm what's called a cusp boomer. Those are people born between 1958 and 1964. We started watching Star Trek at a young age. Let's put it that way. But we didn't get all the cool toys. Let's put it that way. But I started to notice that my boomer business partners, which was Doug and Matt, we were scratching our heads. But our CEO was Gen X. And David Setner, my CEO, I had hired him and made him a partner. He was doing things very differently. And I was like, what is going on? Is there something in the drinking water? And we started to notice that every single employee who was coming on board that kept getting younger and younger and younger acted so weird. I mean, that's the only word I could use today to describe it. Today, we're used to this behavior.
Right.
But back then, all of a sudden, we had employees who didn't want to come in at 9 in the morning. They wanted to show up at 11 because they were out partying the night before, and it was related to business somehow. They would connect the dots. I don't know. And they wanted to work on a proposal all night, bring it in, present it, and then leave and go home and sleep. We were like, what is going on? And even David was acting just completely differently. And I just said in the back of my head, I'm going to write about this someday, because none of it made sense. I had a friend call me up and he said, my nephew just quit his job. He was on track to make $120,000 a year. Remember, this is back in the 90s. And he goes, he's on track to make $120,000 a year in the next 3 years. And he could make business partnership and all this. And they were throwing money at him. And he quit because he didn't like the way his boss spoke to him.
Oh,
And
I
I
get
said,
that.
well, yeah, they're not into dysfunctional behavior. You yell at a millennial, they quit. If you're a dysfunctional environment, they will leave in mass. The entire group of them will stand up and leave you one.
Just wonderful.
Yeah, will leave you a note saying you're evil. This actually happened. A group of interns were hired at a pharmaceutical company. And they were given, I don't know, 90-day internship, let's say it that way, 100 of them. And after 30 days, they all quit en masse, and they left one email. They quit on a weekend, didn't tell anybody, but they sent an email. And it basically said, we can't work for you. You people are evil.
Good
and
for
I was
them.
like, good. Yeah, good for them. Yeah. So let me keep, focused on this story. So I'm running around and I decide, after I leave my company, and it's about 2007, 2008, And I talked to my then wife at the time. I said, what do you think I should do with the next part of my life? She goes, you should write a book. And I thought, okay, this needs to be a different kind of business book. It's got to address the generational issues, but it's also got to address some of the technology issues and what a modern leader should be really doing. Okay. So I sat down and started writing this. Well, Sandy, I would be a month, 6 months, a year in, and all of a sudden read one book and I'd have to slap my head. I had to change direction. The first one I literally stopped for a month after reading the Clue Train Manifesto. And this was written by four professors and high-tech people up in the Cambridge area. These are MIT guys, Harvard, they wrote this book and it just basically laid it all out. This is what the internet is. Boom. And one of the things that stood out was they said, on the internet, this is conversation. And where there's conversation, there's fire, meaning passion. And they said any marketer who enters that conversation is seen as arson. And I said, that's brilliant. So I'm doing that. The second thing that happened is a buddy of mine, Richard Carey, he was working in video games. And I said, this is video games as a teaching tool. And I said, come on, nonsense. I didn't know what was going on. He said, Brad, maybe you ought to listen instead of, what, me listen? And so I flew out to the Games and Learning Conference out in Madison, Wisconsin. And this is where the top PhDs in education meet up with game designers to try and figure out a way to see if they could create games for the classroom, learning games. And some of you are probably rolling your eyes, but let me give you an idea. Let's say you wanted to learn about government, taxation, how municipalities raise money and change the dynamics of their area, their plot of land. Imagine creating that as a team. You divide the class up into 4 teams, and each one of you has a Sim City type of simulation of that city. And let's say you had too many ports and give corporations too much power. And then the laws change. And then now you realize, oh, I need more residential, And so you, instead of just doing it by rote and then having to have 25 years of experience as to what your actions are going to do, now you play a simulation for a semester or a year and 4 semesters, and you learn how to run government and a municipality. So this is the kind of work that made me sit there and go, whoa, what am I listening to now? But the thing that made me really sit up, Sandy, and you're going to love this, I sat down for a fireside chat with Professor James Paul G. And he wrote a book called Video Games, what they teach us about learning and literacy. And that's GEE. I sent him a copy of my first book. This guy sat with the New York Times gaming critic at the time, and they talked about moral compromise in a game world.
That's now, let me explain.
And this was the most packed, fireside chat they had. They sat down in 2 chairs. There must have been 30 or 40 of us, standing room only, in this tiny little ballroom. They gave us a little breakout room, and they're sitting there, and they put up a computer running a fire, like a little fireplace. So it was funny because that was, not done back then. And so I'm sitting there, and they talked about how people don't go around murdering people, but in the video game world, you may do it. And you may have to, let's say you're playing a game with zombies, and the guy comes up to you and he goes, don't shoot me, don't kill me. Even though he had just been bitten by a zombie, he goes, don't kill me, I have a wife and kids. But later in the video game, that character kills you. So you have to start over again. So you realize morally, you can't compromise in the next round, you kill him. even though he's
So
begging for mercy.
this is interesting because I'm hearing a lot of parallels from what you're talking about to what we're seeing out here with all the zombie movies. So my question was going to be
Yeah,
about the video games. I believe everything is energy. It can be used for good or evil. And what I
yeah,
am hearing is they're programming in the schools the children to assume that municipalities are, in this example, run smoothly, efficiently, and that there's not a
yeah,
level of corruption there.
exactly. What we are what we're giving our children, really, and some of them are young adults at this point, is this homogenized world. Yes, there's killing going on and there's all these other things, but if you ever notice in a Batman cartoon or all this, they never show the government or the police department being the cause of crime. And those of you who read an economic book actually know, a real economics book, not one written by Robert Reich, a real economics book where they show you how corruption creates poverty, how government creates
Oh,
poverty
totally.
and creates all these problems. If you've never read a book like that, you're not reading the right books. And so they're creating a homogenized world, and they're creating a world where our young people prefer to be in this world. And I want to finish this story where at the Games and Learning Conference, because the moral compromise means the brain, by the way, doesn't know the difference between reality and your video game world. So they started to discover brain patterns from playing violent video games, fire up parts of our brain that have been dormant for a long time that have the fight or flight mode built into it. And one of the stories that came out of this conference, as they're talking about all this, there were two young men in the front row who raised their hand and they said they played the video game Planetfall, and there's a robot that befriends you in the video game. And in order for you to win, no matter how you play the game, the robot must die. It commits suicide to save your life by leaping out in front of a laser fire. Well, these young men said they cried when that happened because they were like 8 and 10 years old when they're playing this. And the boomers in the room, we all laughed. But Professor G said, no, no, no. Imagine if you were a kid and your teddy bear that you love so much had to be destroyed to save your life. You would have been upset. And we were like, yeah, you're right. So they are playing with moral situations, compromise, that we never had to deal with at that age. And so when you there are stories out there that have been suppressed. Reader's Digest actually did a special about this like 20 years ago. They found an increase in kids who were receiving they were on the dean's list. They were top of their class, top grades. And they would get arrested for a cop would pull them over. They grab the cop's gun, shoot the cop, steal the car, and take off. And the kid was like, what in the hell did I just do? And here they were all playing Grand Theft Auto. So like I said, the brain doesn't know the difference. So here you have these straight A students winding up in prison, not knowing, just like in karate or anything else, when you train, the subconscious mind is prepared to react one way. And this is what the violent video games are doing to young people. And they've had study after study after study about this, and they all get silenced.
And that is
So
so interesting because what I'm starting to realize is we think of the two hemispheres of the brain as our bodies start to form in the womb.
right.
So they talk about emotions or the frontal cortex. From my experience, that's not what I'm seeing. The left side is the intellectual, the male brain. The right side is the female brain. What
Yes.
I'm finding is they're directing all of the information and all the programming to the left side, and this is nothing against men, we have both, but they're directing it there because it doesn't have the compassion and capacity for love that the right side has. So they're
Yeah.
focusing it on one side. This is what I'm finding.
Yeah. There's a movie out. It came out a long time ago with Robin Williams, and I think it's called Toys. And it's basically the story of two sons who took over the toy factory that their father had created. And Robin Williams plays the one with love and compassion. And, he wants to create fun toys, whereas his brother tries to get military contracts, and he actually subterfugically, did I say that right? Gets all these kids to start playing video games, violent video games, where it's all war. But what they don't realize is they're actually controlling real drones in battle. And this movie, I don't think it did well at the box office, but it almost is telling you what they've done. And we have drone pilots right now. They operate and fly our drones over in the Middle East while they're in a bunker in Austin, Texas. And what's happening is these drone pilots, because it's all digital and it's high definition, they can see when they blow someone's brains out and the head explodes. And so there's a high rate of suicide amongst these drone pilots because you think, well, you're just playing a video game. You're not. And they're using a high level military grade Xbox made by Microsoft. Maybe not anymore. I think they went on to another company, but this is exactly what has happened. Your adult millennial, ladies and gentlemen, if you've raised kids, is a highly trained killer in their subconscious mind. That doesn't mean they're a violent person. It just means if you put them in a violent situation or a situation where they need to defend themselves, you might be surprised at what they're capable of doing. And it's all been trained into them through these video games, the violent ones like Halo and Call of Duty and what's the other one? Halo, Call of Duty, and Grand Theft Auto. And by the way, our militaries, all the different branches, have pumped billions into the video games as recruitment tools. So any video game you can buy and download that our military has created, there's a reason they created it.
So this is interesting that you're saying this, and I tend to have a mind that thinks outside the box. So I appreciate what you're saying because I wasn't aware of some of the information you're telling me. So one thing that I've noticed is we always put things on the kids. We're putting it on the millennials. And as you're saying, it's the adults, the military, the PhDs, it's the adults who are the issue. And I want to propose something or pose something to you. So you're saying this is since all these video games. Well, let's look back a couple thousand years to when they killed Christ. That was a mob mentality.
Yep.
And they had the same kind of mentality that there's no heart in there. They hated Christ and they killed him for it. And what I think it is that unconditional love. They can sense who's got the loving energy. That's who they're trying to take out right now. So even back 2,000 years ago, without the technology, it was the same mentality,
right,
of killing what's good.
Well, think of it this way. We are entering a period, and we're going to go there right now, but we're in a spiritual war right now. I just had Dog the Bounty Hunter on my podcast, Awakened Nation, and we were talking about this spiritual warfare that's taking place right now. And what is happening is they want to take the people, the majority, actually, the moral majority, and just push them to the side for a bigger agenda. Yes. And this bigger agenda, we can laugh at it, we can scoff at it. I have friends who think I am what out there. But there's actual living proof that this is happening.
Totally.
Between the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, all our statesmen are clamoring to give speeches at the World Economic Forum. They're online. You can go look them up.
Same in Canada.
Yeah, there is no conspiracy theory, folks. It's right out there in plain sight for you. Just depends on what you want to look at and what you can tolerate. Klaus Schwab actually said a few months ago that we must, I have to do my German accent, we must accelerate Agenda 2030. He actually said that. They have to accelerate the Agenda 2030 plan that the UN has laid out. Agenda 21 is already rolled out. That has already happened. If you don't know what that is the dissolving of sovereignty and the borders around the globe.
Now, and most people are aware of that, but for the viewers on my show. But Brad, you know what's really interesting? Who are the borders for? They're not here for the politicians. They're not here for the military. They have diplomatic immunity. They go everywhere. The borders are only for the people.
Yeah.
The citizens and pay the taxes. So you have a problem on your northern border with Canada. We have a place called Roxham Road where the RCMP carry the suitcases across the border for the people who enter illegally. So the system itself is not broken. It's designed by corrupt, abusive people for them.
Well, let's go back in time. Here's another set of books I recommend everybody read. By the way, before we move on, I want to say anybody who was born after 1984 got one of these. And I'm holding up a Nintendo 64 game controller. And anybody born before 1984, actually 1977 and around there, actually got one of these. And I'm holding
up. I wonder which one I recognize.
Yeah, the GAF Viewmaster, which was the most interactive thing that anybody could use at that time. So let's move on. You were asking again, what was it that you asked?
I'm talking about the borders. So what I'm saying is the only people who have to honor the borders are the people who, I'm going to say for the most part, are decent people. So the military, there's reasons to question them. There's reasons to question what's going on with the political realms, but they don't have to honor, they don't have the same rules we have. But what I really like about what you're saying about the millennials, they're not taking anybody's shit anymore. They're done.
They're done. But here's my problem. They may have the wrong story playing inside their head.
And I get where you're going with that, but they didn't put that in there, but it's still their responsibility.
Yes.
And one thing that you had said about the millennials, that they're tired of what? What are they tired of? The overreach of educators, regulators, government systems, etc. So how do we help rewire that?
Well, they have to get involved, and they also have to be educated. When I sit and talk with millennials, a lot of them are actually conservatives. I talk with a lot of millennial conservatives, and I talk with millennials who also happen to be on the left. And the conservative millennials understand the story better. Let's put it that way. The millennials who are more indoctrinated, let's say, have been told a story by their teachers that all the problems in the world are caused by baby boomers, me. Okay. So this is this is such an untrue statement that we have to sit down and educate them. Sandy, I'm going to ask you this question. You're old enough to remember this. Do you remember the day all bottles went from glass to plastic?
I don't know if I would have remembered the day, but you realize it all starts to happen at some point, right? But then plastic dulls down our electricity in our bodies.
Yes. And so I remember my father and I, we would once on a Friday night or a Saturday night, we didn't snack much in my house, but my dad enjoyed a little bit of potato chips and a little bit of pretzels, because we grew up in Pennsylvania. And we would get a Coca-Cola. This is my treat, a Coke in a glass bottle and with plenty of ice in a glass, a water glass, and I'd fill it up. My dad and I would go upstairs and we'd sit in front of the TV. And it was the only time my father ever took the time out to watch a kid's show with me, which was The Muppet Show. And so I distinctly remember this, and we enjoyed this. This was our moment as father and son. And then slowly, as I became a teenager, remember back then, everything came in a glass jar. Anything that had sugar in it used actual sugar. Okay. So right around the late 70s, I remember when liters of Coca-Cola started showing up in plastic containers. And my dad and I looked at each other like, what the hell is that? Because they could explode. You remember those first ones that came out? They would explode sometimes. Soda everywhere. And we were more comfortable with glass because when that glass broke, it was like Manhattan glass. It was thick and chunky. It's easy to clean up and it didn't cut you. And so I want everybody to understand this. This had nothing to do with boomers. We had no say in this.
No.
It just happened overnight. There was a transition over a year where we went from everything being in glass containers to everything now suddenly being in plastic containers. And we scoffed at it. We looked at it like it was stupid, but what could you do? We had to go along with it. And just in case you don't know, all plastic is made from oil. Okay. The oil industry got us. Aha. This was also the time when polyester clothes started to come out. We had no control over this, ladies and gentlemen. It just happened. The corporations decided this fate. Go
So
ahead.
when
You were going to say something?
we look at that, so I look at the battle we're in is the battle of good and evil. So do you know what the difference is between a sociopath and Satanism?
Not much, but tell me.
Nothing. So this is what we're dealing with. So they
Yeah.
understand how the human body genuinely operates. And I've said in various conversations I've had, so we're talking a lot about the IA and the video games. I say
Yeah.
humans are, sorry, AI. I say humans are IA. We're intelligent already. We are the original consciousness. And this is what they're
Yes.
trying to suppress, even with the polyester,
Yeah.
because it's not meant to align with anything natural in our bodies. And the other ones are things like synthetic hats.
Yeah.
You have watches that we wear. They also, women's bras, they put underwire in there. So when you're standing in front of the microwave, everything is designed to throw energy off. Music at 440
Yeah.
A hertz, everything.
I agree with you on this. And I'm going to tell you my background. My father was a chiropractor. He was a doctor of chiropractic medicine. He also had a bachelor's degree in chemistry. Brilliant man, loved to play with numbers. If you've ever met somebody who likes to play with numbers, there's a special place in heaven for people like that because they love it. But I grew up with this. I grew up being told that you cannot trust the pharmaceutical industry because they weren't into curing the disease. They were just reacting to whatever happened. They didn't get to the cause, they were just treating the symptoms. And so I don't know if you've been following me online, but I had a little bit of a health scare probably 3, 4 years ago. And I started to look in the mirror. My family has a unique genetic code. We don't age like other people. And I started to realize I'm aging. My hair was turning white on top. I was looking heavy. I couldn't lose weight. I was having a hell of a time with my health and could not figure it out. I went to doctors. I tried to figure it out on my own. And what I started to realize is number one, I had periodontal disease. Don't know how I got it. I take such good care of my teeth. I haven't had any cavities in 20 some odd years. So that's number one. Number two, I started to notice a connection between my thyroid and my liver were being affected. I have been in front of the computer a lot, and that hits your thyroid directly. The computer, also, we don't have sugar and natural stuff in our food anymore. What we have is we have trisodium phosphate, which is in Honey Nut Cheerios. Anything that comes in a box has a chemical in it. So I had to start to reverse the damage in my liver. And I didn't touch alcohol for 25 years, Sandy. Didn't touch a drop. So what the hell? Why is my liver having problems? Okay. Why is my thyroid having problems? Why? Why is all this happening? I have never had a vaccine. Just want to put that out there.
But there's so
People,
much in the water now. Like there's so many
right.
things we can't trust. The air, water,
So
pretty much
here's
everything.
the blessing that God sent my way. My girlfriend, who will eventually become my wife, she is Asian and she grew up with Chinese medicine in the household. Her uncle was an herbalist, acupuncturist, and into Tai Chi. And when I told her I don't believe in vaccines because of what's in them, number one, and number two, no one is vaccine deficient. She lit up like a Christmas tree. She said, "You're the man for me because I don't believe in that stuff either." And Sandy, you might not sit down for this one. My graphic design career was doing the meetings for pharmaceutical companies for 35 years. So
So
I have directly had the knowledge. I was asleep. I mean, honestly, I was asleep. I never got vaccines, but I listened to these people and they would hand me a script that the CEO was going to say. And I'm like, are you kidding? You actually believe this? I mean, I'm scratching my head. And you have to be smart to work in this industry because I'm working with oncologists, chemists, scientists, inventors. I mean, we're talking the creme de la creme of PhDs. And they're telling me something, and I'm just looking at them going, you're only looking at a tiny piece of the science. How could you possibly believe this? And I'll tell you what happened that made me quit. Do you remember Fen-Phen? I don't
yes.
know if you, Fen-Phen killed 298 people and injured 100,000 more. Now, that means 100,000 people's lives were shortened because of this drug, this combo drug. It's two drugs in one. The FDA fined Merck and said you cannot make, for 17 years, you cannot make any drugs in that arena. They can make all their other drugs, just not in that area. So there's a dirty little secret in the pharmaceutical industry. When they get caught with that stuff, they are allowed by law to take the ingredients that, they had a factory filled with these drugs. They're allowed to crush up those tablets, add one ingredient or remove one ingredient and rename it, even though it's the same product.
Okay. So do you know who William Tompkins is?
No, who is that?
He, in World War II, he lived in LA, and he would go down to where the military, the shipyards were, because of Pearl Harbor and what have you, and he would study the ships and he would make models. So this is going to blow your mind. So he would make models of these ships, but they wouldn't hide anything on them at the time because they figured nobody knew what radar looked like. So he had all these models, and he went to a store, or he showed them to the store owner, and they put a showcase of all these model submarines, plane, or ships, whatever, in the window. Well, the admirals were walking by and they looked and they're like, oh my God, this is exactly what it is. So they had to come up ways to disguise their radar and different technology on the machines, right? So then next thing you know, he's working for Lockheed Martin and some of these big companies. You know what he says? Every industry, every field of study in the universities is a lie. Medicine is a lie. He said science, all the sciences are a lie. And there was two people, Corey Good and David Wilcox, were talking about this, and they said, who's going to have the biggest problem with this? So I will send you the 4-minute and 30-second clip.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
So you know what they said? Who's going to have a problem with this? The academics and the scientists. So they all think that they have the specialty and knowledge.
Yeah.
And they don't. They have a certain window. There's a man, Jed Diamond. He asked me to proof his book, and I'm reading this book. And sometimes, just because I'm also an author, because somebody writes something doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. But he was versed in the field of psychology.
Right.
He went through for medical school, and I don't know, it wasn't Berkeley. I think it was in San Francisco. And the dean invited certain students with the higher marks over to his house one night and said, this is all bullshit, but if you go along, I guarantee you're going to have great jobs. This information is starting to come out, and I think this is what's going to help drop the system. But who do you trust more, you or me? And your answer has to be you for you. It's me for me. But this is where you say you woke up. So it doesn't matter when we wake up and then we take the path. And I'm happy that you have an Asian girlfriend, for one, because she understands the Chinese medicine.
Yep.
But she has to have a good heart. She has to come from a pure heart, as you would. That's the key to all of this, right? But so when we start looking at the insanity that we call the FDA, CDC, all the lies, Stan Blotkin, he was the godfather of these things. And they did he was testifying back, I don't know what year it was. And the person who was asking him questions says, do you put bovine in there? And he goes, yes. Bovine what? And he goes, serum. He goes, what does the serum consist of? And he goes, blood. And this guy, he's a professional psychopath, right? Professional liar. And he goes, yes. He goes, what else? He goes, you put semen in there? Yes. What else? You put lymph in there? Yes. Saliva in there? So basically they took all the liquid of the frequency of the bovine and the swine, and they put it in the vaccine. And his answer was, yeah, but we take it back out again. Well, then why would you put it in unless you want the average human having the mental capacity of a sheep or a cow? So there's so many people that are outside the norm who see these kinds of videos or see this information, and we see it on a different level because we realize that we do have the true technology within ourselves. That if we can bring this on, we can heal ourselves, like German new medicine. There's so many different things.
We can. I have reversed probably 70% of the damage that has been done to me. And it was just simply by following what everybody was saying, hey, do this. And this is what got me in trouble. Yeah. You know, listening to Western medicine, even though I wasn't immersed in it. So I started going to chiropractors. I started going to energy modalities, you know, plasma fields. I started to use MMS, Jim Humble's chlorine dioxide methodologies. I started taking copious amounts of minerals and listening to Dr. Randy Shannon and Dr. Joel Wallach. And I just started doing their protocols in addition to the protocols that my girlfriend was coming up with, which came from Carrie Rivera. And her children one of her sons had gotten, it starts with an A. I don't know if we're allowed to mention it, but it was
Yes.
autism. And she helped reverse that through enemas and MMS and things like that. And she was a desperate mother. And she accidentally discovered MMS, even though friends had told her many, many times this works, because her son suddenly, after taking a week's round of MMS, which is Jim Humble's solution, the kid turned and looked at her right in the eyes. He hadn't done that since he had all the jabs. And
Susie
so,
Miller also works with reversing that, but you know what they think they are? What the that shot attacks? The spiritual nature of the children, because the new generations who are coming in have such a higher innate knowing. So they're giving them the shot that they can't communicate. And I was working with a gentleman here. I met them at the beach. It turned out to be his mother, him, and his son. And I said to the woman, I said, that little boy is going to be gone. The current's strong. And she told her son, she didn't speak English. So we started talking about it, and I had him, he asked to meet me. So we met. And you know what I did? I sat there energetically, and I got him to assume the persona of his son. And I said,
yeah.
you are Stefan, and I muscle tested until he did. And I went in and I said, does your son have trouble pooping? And he goes, I don't want to talk about that. And I said, I didn't ask if he had a hangnail. I said, I asked if he has trouble pooping. I go, he's angry. He's pissed because of what happened to him. He knows. And he goes, he's really angry that his bowels backed up into his intestines. And we went through and I cleared it from the father. I get a text like 3 days later that says, this is the best time I've had with him. And I said, it's not that your son's is not verbal. The problem is you're only verbal. You got to learn how to read energy fields.
Yeah, you got to learn how to read.
So much good stuff is coming out, but I don't think it's going to be the traditional methodologies who are going to come up with it in time.
No. Energy medicine is coming out. And that isn't just us with our intuitive fields and our ability to see energy. I'm highly empathic. So I can enter a room and I can tell immediately who doesn't like me and who does, who resonates with me and who doesn't.
Who's afraid of you. The ones who don't like you are afraid of you.
Oh my goodness. And that's a lot of people, believe it or not.
That's a lot of people.
And there's no reason. And some of you may be rolling. Yeah, well, what you're seeing, this is all jealousy and envy is
totally, that's what evil is.
It's recognizing your own untapped potential in someone else. That's all jealousy is. If you see somebody that you don't like them or whatever, ask yourself why you suddenly just don't like this person out of nowhere who you've never met. It's because they're vibrating a part of you that you haven't done anything about. And they're living in their truth 100%, and you don't like it.
And if they don't like you, they're going to hurt you. That's the problem, that we're not connecting the dots. Dr. Ramani talks a lot about narcissistic abuse. I call it intentional.
Yeah.
And so these people, she says they're not going to change. So unless they have an epiphany, so we have to learn how to navigate, but still hold them accountable for their actions.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's a belief that our planet right now is about to divide into two parts. Those who are going to take the path of the lower vibration and won't know what is going on. And then those who are light bearers who are just going to lift themselves up and stay positive and stay in that zone of excellence, choosing every day to be extraordinary, choosing every day to look to God first for the guidance, to let the light in and push out the darkness. These are the people who are going to sit in the sun, by the way, which was another healing modality I've always known. Sit in the sunlight, because do I look like a 60-year-old? No. And I don't just
and you don't act like it.
I don't. Yeah, thank you. I don't look. It isn't just about looking young. It's actually about physically being young.
Yes.
I have no body aches and pains. I'm still just as flexible as I was in high school. I actually can run up a set of stairs and I do not get out of breath at all. I discovered several modalities. I've had them on my show, Dr. Wallach and Dr. Shannon, and we talked about micronutrition that's missing in our foods. We also talked about how, you have to build that back up. They did a study in the 1930s here in America, and they tested all the soil samples all across the United States, and they found that our soil wasn't nutritionally capable of sustaining nutritional value that we can get from it, because that's where the plants get they have an immune system as well. And if a plant that you're eating isn't robust enough, the energy, the nutrition, the enzymatic activity is much, much lower. It's not going to sustain the population. Well, they discovered our farms could not sustain the population. We could grow as much food as we want on there, but it wasn't going to go anywhere. So they let the petrochemical companies like Monsanto and Bayer and all this take over. And so what we're eating now is not food. We are not eating food, ladies and gentlemen.
Can I ask just for a second?
Sure.
I want to switch this around.
Sure,
Do you
go
think
ahead.
the barons, I'm going to call them barons at Monsanto and Bayer, just for fun, you don't think they would be so sick and so evil that they would say there's no nutritional value in the soil so that they could bring in their products? But they wouldn't lie to the people, would they? Why I'm asking this is I met a man, his name was Lloyd. He had to be almost 80, and I met him at a dowsing fair. And he walks in, he's got his work boots on, his dungarees, a blue shirt, doesn't put a tablecloth on his table, puts his box down and stands like this in front of his booth. So I have to go and say hi. He's the most interesting person in the room.
Yeah.
So I start talking to him. You know what he does? He brings his energy book over to me. This man since passed. I should have called his family and asked for his materials. But what they showed back then, they would put big drums on the tractors. But what they would do is they would charge it with the frequency for the crop. So this is all natural, same as what they do with the people when we structure water for drinking. So they had it all figured out. But exactly what you said about the clothing and the polyester and the plastics, they want to make money. So they would have lied. When you look at the composition of healthy soil, I think it has 23 similar minerals and I don't want to call it nutrients as azolite, which is a crystal.
Right.
But this isn't, we're not using natural stuff. So this is where we need to go back to, I think.
There are two things people need to understand. Before petrochemicals got involved, farmers used the moon cycles, and they used to plant eucalyptus and certain vines to drive away bugs. They didn't use chemicals. And they claim, the FDA loves to claim this, just because we spray a bunch of chemicals doesn't mean it gets into your system. Yeah, that's a load of hooey.
We need to come up with a new acronym for FDA.
Yeah, and so here's the other part of this I want you to understand. Do you know where Bayer comes from, the company?
Is it Germany?
Yeah, but specifically during World War II, IG Farben was a chemical pharmaceutical company that would sell chemicals to a guy named Adolf and his buddies in 1938 Germany. After World War II, they were petrified that they would be lambasted and wind up in the trials at Nuremberg. So they decided to change their name to one of their subsidiaries. They changed their name to Bayer. So anything that comes out of Bayer's mouth, I don't listen to it.
So the Bush's name before they changed it to Bush was Bayer as well.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing.
It differently.
These families go back in time to the Crusades, to Babylon. I mean, they go way back. Yeah, and some of you are rolling your eyes when you listen to this. Not. But if you, well, some listeners might be. If you read the Bible or you read any, they always say so-and-so begat so-and-so, so-and-so begat so-and-so. Well, they're kept records of who had children. They have been keeping records for thousands and thousands of years. They know who's related to who. They know whose genetic code is the strongest. They know who is, negative RH. They are specifically looking for copper-based versus carbon-based human beings. Our two types of humans. I know some of you are, no, I'm talking about blood. I'm not talking about us upgrading our DNA. There are two bloodlines, and you can see this bloodline in the British flag, the Union Jack, the red line and the blue line, okay? You can see it in our flag, the red bloodlines and the blue field. This is trying to tell you there are two families, and they are fighting, two groups fighting for control of planet Earth. That's what's going on.
Interesting. This is interesting because this thing that you had to stick up your nose and do the test on?
Yeah.
We have a mutual friend who she got one in the mail and they said she had to send it in. It was a random test and she didn't do it. They sent her 2 more notifications and she didn't do it. Well, she had a relative come out from a different province. I'm not going to say which way. And they were sitting around the fire the one night and everybody, they're talking about it and they're saying, I still can't believe they wanted you to go and test and send your whatever snot to the government, right? And we can't believe we didn't get one, is what everybody's saying. The relative looked at her and goes, I got one. So they know those two are related. They're only two people that we know out of everybody. So if anybody thinks that there's something nefarious not happening, that they don't know who we are. I also think the heel prick when a baby, they say they're testing the nerves of a baby. You come out of the womb and you stab it with something. I think that's when they know the blood type, because why won't they let us know our blood types? If it didn't matter.
I know mine. I
so
did my
you
research
have to go
on
and
it.
find it.
Yeah, I mean, I went and specifically had a blood test done probably 30, 40 years ago. And I said, I need to know my blood type. I don't know why, I just needed to know. And there's another reason I don't go to doctors. My family, like I said, does not age like everybody else. I have consistently through my life been mistaken for 10 to 20 years younger than I actually am. And people have looked at me up close and tried to guess my age. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because we all have this genetic code that if we spark it, it will activate. My family just has it, naturally. And I used to watch my grandparents smoke and drink coffee all the time. And I was like, I said to myself, my Uncle Jack, who fought in World War II, lived to be 96. Okay. And I'm thinking, and they smoked and drank constantly, coffee, cigarettes, vodka, you name it. And I thought, if I took our activation code and just pumped it with the right nutrition, energy, meditation, guess what? That energy allowing the sun gives you a DNA download every day, in case you didn't notice. You don't have to wear sunglasses. Don't wear sunglasses, actually. Let your third eye absorb that, your pineal gland here in your brain. That gives you a DNA upgrade. And you got to be out there for 10 minutes. They want you to take a synthetic version of vitamin D instead of going in the sun. And so I started to sit and realize, if I took my genetic code and activated it, I could live easily to 120 without body pains or aches or any of those things, which I don't have. And so I started to realize that you have to have copper in your diet with magnesium, zinc, and calcium. You must have the 120 minerals in your diet every day that keep your cells not only alive, but connected together. You need more cholesterol in your diet. They're lying to you about cholesterol. Dr. Wallach says a grown man my size, my age, should be eating 3 soft-boiled eggs twice a day to get my cholesterol up to where it needs to be. Also, you have to take essential fatty acids. And there's a whole bunch of other things, from sleep to the bed you lay in, exercise regime, everything. Just do it in micro doses, a little at a time. Cut back on your coffee, cut back on sugar, things like that. Sugar is probably one of my biggest weaknesses. But I follow Dr. Berg, Berg, on YouTube.
Berg?
No, just Dr. Berg. And he's a chiropractor.
Yeah, that's the same one. He's pretty good.
He's Eric Berg, and he shows you what his face looked like when he was eating sugar and when he doesn't eat sugar. And you're like, what? Intermittent fasting is incredible. I dropped 35 pounds in 1 month just by intermittent fasting. That's it.
So that's the joke, isn't it? Breaking your fast. And I've had so many discussions. I used to cottage, and I would invite guests up, and I should never have let this happen, but I wouldn't eat breakfast. I was never interested, but they would insist on eating breakfast. So on the weekends, so we started eating breakfast. But your habits start to change, and then you get used to it. And when you change your habits back and stop eating breakfast, you can eat 2 meals a day. I know people eat 1 meal a day and they feel really good. But can we go back about the minerals? It's interesting.
Absolutely.
There was a company in Canada, I think it was called Black Organic Oxygen, and they said it was a 40,000-year-old bog near Ottawa, Canada, and it created a mineral, the black oxygen. But what they said it was a combination of fulvic and humic acid, and because people were buying so much of it, the government decided to test it and said there's a toxic dump nearby, so you can't use this anymore, and shut the company down. So welcome to Canada, right? The Ukraine of the West.
Well, in India, they call it Szollose.
Yeah,
and
I'm not sure.
It comes from way up in the the mountains, the Himalayas or Himalayas, depending on how you pronounce it, where you're from. And Shilajit is almost like this volcanic bog stuff that you're talking about, filled with fulvic acid,
Yes.
filled with it. And I started taking some of that as well.
You know, like
there's a reason. Go ahead.
I like what you're saying about the minerals too. So one thing that people have not been made aware, some people maybe and may not be, every quartz bed or crystal bed in the world, there's minerals around there. So we need that to bring on our higher sensory perceptions, our ability. So exactly, I'm just reinforcing what you're saying there. I agree with you 100%.
Well, Dr. Wallach, Dr. Wallach is the only person I know who has like 3 PhDs, one in veterinarian medicine, one in human medicine, and one in naturopathic medicine. He also was nominated for Nobel Prize in this work of doing, micronutrition. But he looked at the blue zone studies. And if you don't know what the blue zone studies are, it's this study they did over, a decade, I believe, where they went around the world and they interviewed and sat with people where it was common for people in this village or this area to live to over 100 years of age and still be healthy and active. And one of the things that they eliminated from the blue zone study, and you're going to laugh, they found areas where people were just eating meat and they were living to 120 years of age. They're like, no, that doesn't make sense. So they eliminated it completely. So they're focused on these diets where they're eating sushi or the Mediterranean diet, things like this. So the second thing that they did not look at, which Dr. Wallach did look at, was what was in the soil. And he found that the places where people lived the longest had selenium in the soil. They had a major vein of selenium. So selenium is super, super, super important if you want to not have a heart attack, if you want to, fight cancer, if you want to do all these things. Selenium is incredibly important to our diet. And you're absolutely right, Sandy. I think it was intentional that they've lied to us. They are dying to take over the vitamins and minerals supplement area. I do believe they try to tell us what they are doing through their movies. When we go see Hollywood is the wood they use to create magic wands, by the way, Hollywood. They're trying to enchant you and tell you what they're going to do, because if they tell you what they're going to do, they show you what they're going to do, they are karmic free. Because you'll just say, wow, that's such a coincidence. We had a movie out last year that covered this whole COVID thing. Or, we had this movie last year that covered this train wreck. Wow, that's such a coincidence. It is not a coincidence.
So one of my spiritual clearing books is by a man named Richard Hunt. I think he has passed, I think in 17. And one of the pages, it talks about how you can get implants, probes, what's the other one? Like toxic devices. And it gives you all the different ways it happens. And one of them is through handheld electronics. And then it says how it sends it to us: hexes, vexes, curses, and modems. So they knew when they created the internet that they were going to be sending us an ability for demonics to come through even the airwaves and into your computers, right? So these guys are ugly on the inside, right? That's what I call them.
I think a huge part of the people who work in these industries are just unaware. They're completely unaware of what's going on.
And I think you're a very nice guy, and I think they are exactly aware. And
I think the leaders are aware. I think the top people are completely aware of what's going on. But I think the young people and some of the people who've gotten into these professions, they go to Harvard, and some guy at Harvard or Yale says, the world would be better if we just got rid of 95% of the population. They're like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Well, they never think, well, how about your mom, your dad? That's what they're talking about. They want to eliminate your family.
Sociopaths and psychopaths. So there's no excuse. Totally. We kind of got way off topic from what we were going to discuss today, but that's okay. It gives us a chance to get together again. There's 2 universities in Canada in 2013, one in BC, and it was a business university, business campus and one out in Halifax. You know what they were doing in Frosh Week,
What?
which is September 6th to the 12th kind of thing?
What?
Pro-rape chanting minors for the new students to come in because they want to see which one's eyes light up at the thought of harming another and which ones don't. I don't believe, I think every industry out there has had an opportunity to get their industry sorted out. I'm done waiting for these. I don't care if they've got a PhD. I don't care. They're just not guaranteed they know what they're talking about. And I'm not naming any
Yeah.
names. So what this is going to come down to is the good and the evil. So what they're doing is trying to see who will go out, who will get off on hurting somebody else. And that's who gets promoted in these positions. So this Dr. Ramani, she was talking about the field of clinical psychology, and she's really upset with her industry because they don't understand narcissistic and intentional abuse. She actually came out recently on a video and said over half of the psychologists don't believe abuse is intentional. And then she comes out and says, then you go to a psychologist and you're in a narcissistic relationship, and the first thing they say, well, what is your role in all this? So sometimes people are just ugly on the inside. And this is what I think we're moving into.
Yeah.
Rob, we're moving into understanding what your intentions are. We don't care if you're too stupid. I don't mean you. I mean, whoever, they don't understand.
Yeah, I think the light is exposing this stuff.
Yes.
And now the person can no longer just stand in their bubble. They're forced to reflect and look at themselves. You know, I've run into quite a few narcissists. You know, I live in Vegas. And I used to have two business partners that just, quite frankly, I didn't see it coming because they knew how to shut off the New Yorker in me. I lived in New York City for 35 years, and all my New York stuff was saying, get out, this person's up, get out. But they were able to shut it down.
And this is what, because they would have tag teamed you. You wouldn't have seen it coming because if enough people tell you the same thing, it's like NLP. So I've done some things regarding some trafficking and really speaking up about the trafficking of children around here to the point I've attracted some unscrupulous people who follow me around. Okay, so I'm not going into the drama of this. My neighbor moved in because I was trying to help a mother get her daughter back. Turns out he's a cop in that region. It's just ugly. So the neighbor on the other side of me, we quite like each other. So what's starting to happen was I started telling her what's going on. And now he's trying to butter her up and give her compliments. And then he's going to try and say, Sandy acting weird lately, and try. So this is the game. They all play the same game. They have hive mind. This is what's funny though. I go for a walk before I met up with you today because I thought I'm just going to go burn off a little excess energy. Well, my neighbor's out there coming up a path. So we stood there and we're talking for about 30 minutes and I'm telling her what's going on where I walk. And I go, this probably sounds paranoid. She goes, are you paranoid? I said, no, I'm tired of hearing they're all too freaking stupid to figure this out. I'm tired of so many industries being corrupt. And then she said, so I have my back to the road. And then she's like, oh my God. And I go, what? And I turn and there's a guy on a bike riding past us. She goes, he stood there pretending to fix his bike for like 5 minutes because he was listening to it. So my neighbor got to see how this game is played.
It is.
It's they all do it the same way. He's not a top dog. He's probably some asshat who doesn't even know what we're doing, but he's probably told we're horrible people or something. And he's got a microphone or a camera. So this is what we don't understand. It's all the Truman Show. Well,
I had somebody in my alley by my backyard, and they were just milling around. And, you know, I'm a gun owner. So I let him know I was a gun owner. So, you know, if you want to mess with certain things, you know, you what do they say? Screw around and find out.
Yes. But what people don't realize is this is intentional.
Yes, I do believe. I'm not discrediting that what you said, that they all are in on it. What I'm saying is the person who, you know, goes to college and is this wide-eyed young individual, they can be conned into believing a satanic agenda and not know it's satanic because they've never actually been exposed to what's going on. You know, they
are exposed to it. It's normal. That's what I'm finding, that they call it Monday.
Well, when they remove God from certain things intentionally, and then they start saying, well, you know, anybody who believes in God and is into spiritual stuff is a dinosaur. And we want facts, we want truth, we want all these things. And they've turned and shifted everything on planet Earth to cater to 2% of the population. Something's up. My father taught me from day one, and my dad was a Democrat. He was a Democrat, and he happened to be a lifelong member of the NRA. So this makes the gears in their head grind a little bit when they hear that. But my dad always told me, you can never, ever trust what the government tells you, ever. Even if you like the politician, always question everything.
Everything, but we should be questioning
Everything.
everything, period.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
because there's so many people who think now that they have say over what other people do, and some of them, they refer to them as Karens. And I was hoping we were going to talk about what's going on in
Karen's
this.
in chat. We can, if you want to go a little longer. This might be your long episode, and we'll
Okay.
divide it into 2 parts.
There you go, right? And but when we look at the people who think they know better than you, and this is what the education system has created, a group of people who actually think because they have a degree or a diploma on the wall that they're more qualified to be you than you.
Yeah.
And when I say you, I don't mean you in particular. I mean the general public. But who
Yes.
says what it means to be human? And who says, like, what's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of love?
Right.
Why is
Right.
love missing? And we look at what's happening with that one procedure that people were getting, and it's affecting the heart of all these people. Because that's my opinion and my understanding from research I've done, is the thymus, your higher heart, was your original third eye, that it comes from the heart. So I can back this up. I can show you
like
that.
that.
But you know where the mount here on your chest is?
Yeah, right here.
That's your thymus, right?
Yep.
And Donna Eden medicine, you tap it and you can energize it.
Yeah, I know
Right?
Donna and her
Yeah,
husband.
so there's so much going on that we have to start looking at people and saying, you're no more qualified to be me than me. And again, this Dr. Ramani, I quite like her. She says, use a qualified therapist. Well, how do you know your therapist is qualified if half of them don't even think abuse is intentional and don't get the game of life? So this is why it's so important for each of us to start asking ourselves what is right for us and making our own decisions. And that, again, was going back to the millennials. What I really liked what you had said about in various interviews with them, that they're very independent. Have they been given the wrong information? Yes. But it's their responsibility as parents now to understand that they don't want independent generations of independent people. So maybe that's why they're going after the children now. I honestly don't know. But
I think they are desperate. This is why they're going after more kids. I spoke with the woman 2 days ago. Her daughter, when they were walking around doing their thing, there was a guy scouting her daughter, getting on the phone and speaking in Spanish, and she understands Spanish. The guy was describing her daughter to the T. They were going to abduct her daughter. And she had blonde hair and blue eyes. And they're getting more aggressive because they're more desperate. Because
I don't think they're more desperate. I think the system is designed to cover their asses, and they know it. They don't care. And I've seen judges.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, courts are corrupt. The law enforcement is corrupt. The 3-letter agencies are corrupt. You look at Gloria Steinem. She was brought in the feminist movement, which made women hate themselves, and it's mostly women who are transgendering right now. But there's video. She was a CIA agent. So women betray women as well. So we have to really unpack all the things we think about life, that males are the abusers. Males can abuse sexually and physically. Women tend to do it more emotionally and sexually. But a lot of this ugliness, but what you just described, I've had people tell me in stores that they have kids in the mall, and they will have people that ask the kids to go and find this certain type of child for them. So the kids are reporting in the kids. This is how ugly and protected darkness is, that they've got all the bases covered within the politicians.
Yeah.
It's really
interesting. I'm going to have some people on my show that are taking this to another level because it's being exposed. It's right out in front of you. There is a reason why. I mean, how many children are abducted every year? We're talking in the millions now. Am I correct?
800,000 in your country alone, 60,000, 50 or 60 in mine.
So 800,000 children are abducted every year. Do you really think all that is for sex trafficking, ladies and gentlemen? It's for other things.
It's for a lot of things, right?
And
so this is
yes, go ahead.
This I like energetically, that. The chakra system?
Yes, I do.
I would know you would do this because of what we've talked about. So what did they do? What did this particular group do with the chakras?
They reverse it.
They inverted it, right? So basically, your spirituality is up your ass and you're talking out your pie hole. And you know who created, so what's missing in this diagram, when you compare Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the chakras, the top two spiritual colors is what's missing.
Because that's etheric and soul planes. Yes.
So what's really interesting about that, I didn't realize when I made up these graphics, guess what Maslow was? The Freemason. So we
Yeah.
start to see, when we put all of this together, we're starting to see the big mind games that it
Well,
is. And
you know what woke me up?
what's that?
You're gonna laugh. I'm a high-end graphic designer. What that means is I do high-level annual reports, logo designs, things like that. I charge for a major corporation's logo between $8,000 and $25,000. Okay. I started to notice a pattern in corporate logos like 40 years ago. So I'm doing some design work and I'm putting this logo together and I'm looking, I like Greek and Roman, it's very cool stuff. And then I started to realize Fidelity Investments uses a pyramid with the capstone floating in the air and a 12 or 13 spired sun behind it. I go, okay, that's a coinky dink. But as I'm doing more and more research, I realized there were two worshipers throughout the ancient world, those who worshiped Horus, the sun god, and those who worship Jupiter or Saturn, okay, which is where we get Satanism from. And their symbol was a perfect square, which you see on the American Express card. And you also see it in the octagon as well. These are shapes that they use. And you're thinking, oh, come on, Brad, the symbolism, it's just symbols.
Sacred
Well,
geometry.
yeah, I'm going to tell you, it's called sacred geometry. There's a reason why your capital Lone or capital One card has the rings of Saturn on it. There's a reason why you have a white dove from Samaria as a hologram on your Visa card. There's a reason why you have Horus and Set on your the Master's card logo. That is Horus and Set, the brothers who battle at sunset. When you say hour, that's from Horus, Horus, was changed to Hours, hours. Horizon means Horus has risen. It's all right in front of you. When you look at a five-pointed star, that's Venus worshiping. And when you close the points of the star, you create a pentagram. So symbolism, you may be laughing, well, what does symbolism mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything. Well,
it means
in
everything.
magic, they use sigils. And sigils are just graphics and words, a lot of times in Hebrew, that are placed there and they program the subconscious. They control the subconscious. They stop you from being able to do certain things, or they inspire you to do certain things. So it's very important to understand what symbolism means, because these are magical sigils that are being used. Why is it that every single oil company uses a sun symbol in their logo? Okay, Exxon uses two crosses, double crosses. The cross comes from its original was the sun, how it hit during the equinox, the shadows from an obelisk where it would land during the equinox and the solstice at different times of year. That's why one end of the cross is long. This is the shadows. They take those two crosses and put them side by side. You have the sun symbol in BP. That's a sun.
The sun symbol is also in Walmart. And just for the record, I think for most of the children's advocacy centers that they've set up in all major cities, Dallas,
this is to tell you,
they have the sun as well.
This is to tell you who they are and who runs them. They're giving you their symbolism right in front of you, so you know what's going on. Why do police officers have a 7-pointed star or a 6-pointed star? It's telling you who they work for. Okay. Why does, there's certain logos that my jaw drops immediately. Target is not a target. Target is not a target. That is Jupiter from above, or the rings of Saturn. Sorry. The rings of Saturn from above. That's the target logo in red. Red is a color of the lower chakras of the Kundalini.
So we are starting to see the corporations that are supporting this trans agenda. North Face, Target. Who's the other one?
Well, they're hiding.
Bud. That's so funny.
I want everybody to know, I don't hate anybody who is LGBTQ or trans, I work with those people in the design field. What we're trying to get at is what is causing this, because it's increasing. There is a guy who created a pesticide called atrazine. And atrazine, they sprayed it on all the chemicals. And he started to continue, because that was his job, to do the research into what was going on. Well, atrazine, they did a study at Stanford, it turned bullfrogs into male bullfrogs into females. It causes gender dysmorphia, and it causes your genitalia to shrink up and change into the opposite. It is in our drinking water now. And instead of going after the company and eliminating this and finding them and getting rid of atrazine, they are covering it up.
And you know what else is in the drinking water in Canada? I was out for a walk and I could hear metal on stone. And I climbed up on a bridge to continue my walk. And there was two people there taking water samples. And I asked what they were doing. And I said, do you guys ever test for, I go, where do you test? Like before this plant here and blah, blah, blah. And I go, do you guys ever test for estrogen? And you know what he said to me? Estrogen is the one, I don't know if he called it a compound, that no province in Canada and federally, nobody's allowed to test from it. And exactly what you described in Great Lakes, Lake Erie, the fish are getting both genitalia. So these guys are sick. They're putting it into absolutely everything and nobody will do anything about it. And we are standing up. We do realize that we're starting to put all these dots, connecting them.
What bothers me the most is when I point this out, I show the facts behind it, not conspiracy theories, the actual facts. I talked to a friend of mine, Michael Howell, who writes government policy, and he started writing what we would call conspiracy research books. He's written policy for Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and other government officials, and he tells you point blank, they ain't working for us.
They're not.
They haven't for a long time. So get ready. There's policies they're putting in place that are just seriously sick. And if you don't believe me, I'm sorry, you're not awake yet. And you might want to start hanging out with people who are awake, because some people, and I have friends from high school who are still living in a bubble. They are still inside a bubble. And I said on Facebook, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, they're trying to make it illegal to disagree. And one of my classmates wrote back, who's they, Brad?
I know.
The mocking tone. And I laid out, Klaus Schwab and Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. And these are some of the most intelligent people I know. They have high degrees.
That doesn't make them intelligent, Brad.
They're the hardest to convince.
They've come out and done studies on that because they're so attached to their ego. They're so attached to their profession that they're somehow experts that they won't listen to another's opinion. These are going to be the ones we let go. Well, I try to convince somebody who doesn't want to be convinced. But if we can get the synchronicities between our left and right brain functions working, our creativity and our imagination, and combine that with common sense from our left brain, we're going to out vibrate a lot of these people. And it's not, I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't identify. I don't care who says they're LBGT. If you're leading with your sexuality, all I know is you don't know who you are.
Yeah, you gotta love the whole part of yourself. I mean,
and they don't.
Maybe we'll go into the esoteric, but we do reincarnate. You may not believe in that, but I know I've been here before. I've met the same people, things like this. And all that's being accentuated is these people are now in a different body. And they're like, wait a minute, go one step further and believe perhaps that spiritually God put you here for a reason in a new body. Yeah. And there's a reason.
I'm okay with that. And I like people to form their own opinion. Nothing I do is I don't tell anybody. Right. They can form their own opinion if they agree with that or not. But what is happening, that is definitely what you're talking about the spirituality, the spiritual war. They don't want us waking up to how significant and how absolutely talented our original software and hardware is in our human form.
Well, Sandy, ask yourself a simple question. And anybody listening, ask yourself a simple question. Why are they forcing over 38 to 70 vaccines on a baby all the way up to 18? Why are they doing that? Is it just for profit? Why is it that suddenly there's chaos everywhere you go? And they're hiding what the corruption that we're actually starting to discover. What is happening? We're awakening vibrationally. Everybody's awakening, and we're starting to see the truth. They're
Yes.
creating chaos. Those in power are creating chaos, so we cannot see the truth.
Can't see
Go
what they're up
within.
to, right?
Listen to shows like this. Listen to shows like mine. Go around and take the time out to go within, and you'll realize, reconnect to you as soul. You are a soul having a human experience. And you may not believe that, and that's okay if you don't, but there is an energy in your heart center that is right there, and it knows all. There's a great TED talk that I recommend that everybody watch, and that's Jill Taylor Bolte. She had a stroke, and she's a brain doctor. She studies the brain. That's her job. Well, she had a stroke, so she could experience her left brain just died, and now her right brain was awake. And she talks about what it was like because the left brain cannot experience God, but the right brain
Exactly.
can.
And that's what
And
they're
it
trying to do with these shots.
creativity. Yeah, the shot, this thing that they're trying to put in you. I've worked in this industry for 35 years, and I can tell you they do not care if you die.
Yeah.
They do not, I'm going to repeat that. They do not care if you die from their products.
There's
And
two
they will do
hospitals.
everything to
There's two
silence you.
hospitals. Sorry, there's two hospitals around me, and I've heard from two different people. And one of them was talking to the person who ran the bid floor, and she was a supervisor. And she told this friend of mine, she said, "You're not going to believe what they pay my daughter, another $1,200 a month to keep her mouth shut, not talk about what goes on the floor." She goes, "My husband, he works as an engineer in the hospital." She goes, "They pay him $1,200. She goes, "You wouldn't believe the bonuses we got." And then she had, so my friend is looking at her, about to say, "You're taking bribes." You know what the woman had the nerve to say? "I don't know why people aren't speaking up about this." I don't know how
Yeah.
my friend didn't punch her out. I really don't. And then I recently heard from another friend who named another hospital and says they're getting bribes. So it doesn't matter if you're the nurse or you're the janitor or you're the
Yeah.
doctor or you're the administrator. If you've got ugly on the inside, you're ugly on the inside. You're not a nice person. And that's what
Yeah.
it's coming down to. We don't care what your occupation is. I'm not picking on plumbers here, but the Plumbers Guild didn't come out with all this LBGT, LMNOP, QRST nonsense. It was mental health who did, and the education system, who in Canada, the Deputy Minister of Education, Benjamin Levin, helped create
Yeah.
the sex ed curriculum. And guess what? He was caught by Australian police counseling the mothers to get the daughters ready to be raped by him.
Yeah. This is the sickos that are running
It's
things. I don't know.
totally.
I don't know if you saw the movie by Matt Walsh, What is a Woman? But he pointed out that John Money, and these are all PhDs, John Money did these horrible experiments on children, sex experiments, and Alfred Kinsey, he had an orgasm chart starting with babies all the way up to 10 and 15 and all this.
Prepubescent boys, I think they were.
And
And you know, the one of them,
yeah,
4-year-old, 26 orgasms in 24 hours. You tell me that little boy's nervous system wouldn't be shot for the rest of his life. Where's law enforcement to say, "Hey, this is criminal"? I'd
well,
love to
he's
do. I'd
a
love to do it.
doctor. He's a doctor.
Right?
Yeah, this
Slap
is the
a lab
nonsense
coat
thing.
on it, and it now has more say than use of this. I'd love to get into this another time. We're going on an hour and 20 minutes, if this is okay. So do you have anything last minute you would like to share with the viewers based on what we're talking about today with health and
Sure.
wellness and
Life, millennials. If you're my age, you may not realize that your adult children don't think at all like you. And so you have to kind of begin this dialogue of asking them to tell you the truth about what they really feel about our generation. And it may surprise you. They may tell you they wish our generation was dead because they've been taught that.
they've been taught that.
They've been taught to hate the next generation. And I always say, whatever you were raised with or is inside your head, you have to start now at a certain age to question, well, why is it there? Did I discover this on my own? Did I do my own research? Did I listen to an authority figure, or did my parents teach me this, or is this a generational thing that keeps coming up? And this is the beginning of cleaning up and doing the shadow work, or whatever you want to call it, or going in and looking at your traumas and kind of going, wow, I didn't know. I didn't know that most of what I believe in was placed there by someone else.
Totally. And that's the craziness.
No, That's the craziest part about it. And sometimes you got to read books from authors you don't like or didn't know about. We have a huge chasm here in America right now between the left and the right, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And part of the reason is the left has been told that the conservatives are evil, they're racist, they're all these things that my jaw drops because I don't know a single conservative who's like that in any way. And I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people. And so the lies that are out there,
So
the
they're lying
control,
intentionally because
the
they know that you're
propaganda.
going to try to give them the right answer and say, no, I'm not like that.
Exactly. And the
So they
thing
know they're
is,
lying.
they're doing this on purpose to keep you from the truth.
Yes.
It's easy to sit there and go, yeah, that politician, he's a crook. He's the most corrupt ever. Well, who's pointing the finger? And there's three fingers pointing back.
And I've heard that so many times, and I'm not of that opinion. And I'm not saying that to challenge you. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. I see there's white hats, there's black hats, and there's ass hats. Pick a lane, people. But people have to start being responsible for what they think. And an example in California, I hear there was a group of Muslim people down in front of a church, or not a church, a school, in front of the board of directors, the school board, and they were quite upset. You're not hurting our children. Well, guess what the school did or government did? They sicked Antifa on the Muslims.
They did
Like,
what?
they sicked Antifa. Antifa shows up about parents saying, leave my kids alone. Well, why would Antifa care about that? I thought they were all about being fair in politics and whatever. So they're just hired thugs for whatever they need, and they're moving them around, which again, we're starting to see the intentionality. Nobody said these people are intelligent in Antifa.
No, well,
some of them are just dumb.
Winston Churchill said it best. He said, the fascists of the future will not know they are fascists. And it's true.
We're there.
they think automatically, well, fascists are on the right. No. Anytime there's violence and control and someone creates this kind of problem in the world, that's fascism.
Yes, and it's intentional. And when we realize that, then we can start unpacking, like you said, the programs, look at where we started getting assumptions from, why we think things. And it doesn't matter when you wake up. I'd like everybody just to be reminded that when you look at a wave that's cresting on the shore, there's a lot of drops of water in that wave. It doesn't matter if you're the first drop, somewhere in the middle of the wave, at the back of the wave, or you're the swell for the next wave. When you wake up, you wake up. We need everybody.
Exactly.
But the idea is we can see truth. We can see the nonsense. We can see the bullshit. Most importantly, we have to see the little games they play, because that's what the ugly on the inside are all about. Little head games, lies, manipulations, trying to get you to believe what's not true. That's the evil stuff, right?
I don't trust certain things when I see them. I have programmed myself to wake up when I see that. And,
it's interesting.
You have to. If you
do you know how to muscle test?
Yes, I do. I do it like this.
I just do it one hand just because I do it all the time. But you can put supplements on your thymus and test to see if this is good for you. You can take 3 of the same supplements, say vitamin A, and you can put each different manufacturer there, and only one is right for you because maybe the container's not right or the capsule they use is not good for you. And that really helps people identify and learn how to trust themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's what I like about that.
I do that on Amazon when I'm about to buy a particular, product. And a lot of times the companies that put the most money into the packaging are the worst ones to buy.
I know, because
it's always the ones, because I used to do package design. I know what it costs. So when you see a supplement, and through the years, I've bought some supplements and I've tested them, the package is beautiful. And then you open the product and first of all, it's only half full. Second, there's so much plastic and junk in it. It's ridiculous. And they want to regulate that now. Hello.
Of course they do.
The book that changed my life, as far as supplementation goes, is The Copper Revolution. And that's been phenomenal. Simply because you can reach out and talk to the guy who wrote it. I think it's Jason Hummel. And he just did a phenomenal job telling you there are 20 causes of death that are directly related to copper deficiency.
Yeah, I've got copper in my earrings. I wear copper as jewelry. So there's all kinds of things to do with copper cups, copper spoon.
if you take copper, it eliminates slowly. It takes about a year, but it will get rid of your gray hair. You just have to stop dyeing your hair. It'll get rid of your gray hair. It will get rid of your wrinkles, and it will repair joints and tendons.
So all kinds of neat things to
Yeah,
start
and we are
exploring.
copper deficient. Actually, the Ankh in Egypt is a copper symbol.
Is
Symbol
it?
for
I didn't
copper.
know that.
Yep. Yeah.
Good stuff.
And so the thing, we've had a fascinating talk today. We've been all over the place, but I have fun. We've known
Yeah,
each
so did
other
I.
for years.
Yes, just talking online and social media, and
Yep,
just I
yep,
watch things that you post, you watch things that I post, and it's just kind of neat because even 4 years ago, I wouldn't have been versed in the information I'm in now. But once you
yeah,
start to open up, then the information comes in real fast.
it
So I can
does.
speak, yeah, I can speak about things now that I couldn't, right? But
Well, I remember when I was doing research for my first book, Liquid Leadership, I went out to the Games of Learning, summit, which I talked about in the beginning of the show. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to put my opinion aside and I'm going to research this as if I am a journalist and I need this information and I need to be given an aha moment. And that's what helped me immensely. And it woke me up, and so if you have a strong opinion about certain things, perhaps ask yourself
ask
where you
why.
got that opinion from and put it aside just temporarily to take a look at something. And then you can go back to discernment. You can figure
Yes.
it out for yourself. I don't believe in that, or I think that's ridiculous, or, I had an ex-business partner that was non-binary. She was completely into the trans,
So all that tells you is you hired a stupid business partner. Do you know why? Think of
why?
computers. You've got ones and you've got zeros when you computer
Yep.
program. You got a phallus, you got a womb. That's it, people.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it doesn't, yeah, exactly. So it doesn't actually matter what you believe. This is the genitalia you have. So you're still going to have sex exactly the
So
same
do you know
way.
with all these genders, this is funny, something to finish on. Even when you're getting a sex change, you're either getting a penis or a vagina. Like there's only two. They're not giving you 68 flavors of what you
Exactly.
could have in between.
Right.
Stop falling for this, people. So I like what you
Well,
said. Let's finish out on this. But I like what you
sure.
said about be like a journalist. That's one way of wording it. Just
Yep.
act like a journalist and empty your mind of thoughts. The other thing is let go of any outcomes, any attachment to any outcome. Ask to be shown the truth for the truth's sake. Ask to be shown in a way you can handle it. Otherwise, the universe is going to truth bomb you and it'll just blow your
Yeah.
mind. So, but exactly what you're saying, right? Just there's different ways that people can say it, but it all comes down to the same. Let go of your outcomes. Let go of your expectations of
Right.
things happen to be a certain way. And that's going to make you smarter overnight.
It is. It
It
really
is.
is.
So,
Yeah.
so Brad, where can they find you if people have any questions for you?
You can reach out. You can Google me, my name, or you can email me on at Brad at liquidleadership.com. Liquid Leadership is my first book. We now have the 10th anniversary edition out. I've won awards for this book, but it kind of explains when I was running around talking to corporations, they didn't listen until I started talking about the parenting part. And so you can look for Liquid Leadership, just, that'll get my contact information. I'm on all the social media platforms, Facebook,
Yes.
Instagram, Twitter.
And
So
your website?
www.bradzollos.com. You can go there. That's BRADSZOLLOSE. It's an old
Perfect.
Hungarian name.
There you go. So this has been
Thank you,
fun. So
Sandy.
next time, maybe we can talk about your, how you started working with the parents, because I do more of the personal side. And I really think we can dovetail information and give
Sure.
people a lot of help. So we'll do this
Well,
again.
I would love that.
Thank
I
you for
would love
watching,
that. Thank you.
everybody. So have yourselves a great rest of your day. We hope you found this helpful. Take good care,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a good one.